Alrighty, so we have a few interesting things to talk about. The first thing I want to do is we finally got our report from the Washington State University on mites. They're going to send me nosema counts and trachea mite counts here in the next week. But finding this actually very interesting. At first, so they sampled 8 colonies out of this yard. This is where our nuke that we've been following through a season was. And interestingly enough, there's only 2 hives that showed mites, and I couldn't remember what number the nuke was, or nuke colony. It's a full colony now. And so I was looking at this paper and trying to figure out, here I'll show it to you. You can see that, 6 of the colonies have 0 mites, and then the number of bees sampled. And then number 3, there was 4 mites, which gives a percentage of 1.65 mites per 100 bees. And then 1 at the bottom there was 1 mite, giving a mite presence of 0.35. Number 3 is actually our full colony. So it kind of makes sense to me, because you're going to have a greater population in a full-size colony versus the nuke colonies that we sampled. The other thing that's encouraging to me is that these are numbers after we hadn't treated for mites in this yard since late spring. So that again is showing me that actually, for what it is, I mean, to have only 2 colonies that have mites out of 8, and for those mite numbers to be pretty good overall, I'm quite happy with that. So we have done a full round of mite treatments, and so here's what we're going to do today, and got a few different things to do to keep your interest, and that is we are going to open up our nuke colony, going to give it some pollen sub, also going to actually show you the full process of doing an alcohol wash with this really cool mite varroa check. You know what, this is still the alcohol from, yep, still is alcohol. It's the alcohol still from the last time I did that mite check and forgot to record it. So anyways, let's go ahead and gear up here. First thing we'll do is, you know what, let's get our pollen sub ready. So this is kind of a cool, I've had a couple of people ask me what type of pollen sub this is. Check the camera here, make sure I'm in the screen. Yep. This is NutraBee, developed and made by Keith Jarrett down in Oklahoma, California. Talk about a guy who takes great pride and is incredibly knowledgeable in what he does. So I'm going to give them a good serving of it here. I don't know, that's probably only 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. Put my mic thing away. And the reason we're doing this is because we're obviously still wanting to encourage brood rearing so that you have a good cluster going into the winter. And also too, it's a really interesting study if you go to scientificbeekeeping.com, Randy Oliver's, and study the characteristics of fat deposits on honeybees leading up to wintering. Really interesting. And so what we're doing by giving them a really good quality, high in protein, high in fat pollen sub, sorry about the camera work, is we are also having those bees that are going to make up the winter cluster. We're getting them nice and fat and getting them full of nutrition, because what happens is that winter cluster, as you come to the end of the winter and the bees that have formed the winter cluster start to die off, they are going to use that energy and the rest of those fat reserves for rearing the next generation. So you can imagine why it's really important that they have good quality fat bodies in stores. So this has already gotten lighter. Our medium that we had there with honey, because the bees are starting to draw the reserves, the honey reserves, down into the brood chamber. There is a lot easier ways to use this. Usually the best thing when you're doing a mite count is to have a plastic bin. I'm not sure what they'd be called. They're about this big, and check the frame that you're going to pull for the queen, and then shake them into that bin, and use a half a cup measuring cup that's half a cup. That's roughly 300 bees, and then you can just dump them into here. Because I don't have that, I'm just going to shake the bees directly into that cup. So when you're doing a test for mites, you are wanting to pull from frames that have open brood, because that's where your highest density of mites is going to be. Once again, before shaking them, check and make sure that you don't have the queen. And I hate to tell you this, but the more you do this, the greater the chances that one day you are going to accidentally get the queen. It's just bound to happen. The bees this time of year too are definitely more defensive, simply because, you know, it's that time of the year where there's really nothing new coming in, and so they're wanting to definitely guard what they already have. Let's see, on this side. And we're at there's lines inside of here that show you when you're around the 300 bee mark. So we've got our sample. So put the lid on. And we twirl up. You know, I find, might be my imagination, but I swear I get better mite drop out of the bees if I'm shaking up and down versus swirling. Like I said, my personal observation may or may not be accurate, but it's what I seem to be seeing. And while you shake your bees, you can, talk about politics, national, international affairs. It's been a while since I've listened to the news, but I still believe that Saddam Hussein probably does have weapons of mass destruction and such and such. Anyways, this is such a crucial step. Going back to this Washington State University study, something that I find very, very interesting about our mite loads showing very low is that we were still seeing, when we were doing the sampling, a fair amount of black, shiny bees, which is from the, what do they call it, chronic parasitic mite virus C, or chronic wing. Anyways, something like that. If you Google black shiny honeybees, you'll come across it. So anyway, so we've been shaking that for about a minute, and you know what? Let's let that sit so any mites, hopefully there are none, but any mites that there might be can settle to the bottom. And what we'll do here too is go ahead and set that pollen sub right down on top of the brood, or in the middle of the brood chambers. like so, and like so. You know, I just realized too, I've got some new stuff that's become highly recommended. And you know, I have to say, this is a really important point to make. In beekeeping, you always have to continue to learn, and some things are personal preference as well. So, you know, I'm giving you a rundown on what I'm doing, how I'm doing my operation. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. Actually, I can guarantee you it's not the best way, because like I said, continual learning. It's like with any business, you always have to be striving to be better, learn how to do things more efficiently. Anyways, this is something that I've had a few people recommend. Super DFM. We purposely have waited a couple of weeks since we finished, our antibiotic run, because you're going to kill the probiotics that this is supposed to bring to the hive if we do not have that really important distance between the antibiotic treatments and then when we're introducing good probiotics into the colony. You're supposed to use a tablespoon on this stuff. They were saying specifically, the gentleman that I was talking to from the company, that you want it dispersed as evenly through the colony as possible. He was actually saying that some guys are using compressed air to blow it directly into the entrance of the colony, which to me seems like a absolutely brilliant idea. Now I've had this top box staggered for the last while because I was worried about heat. I guess we're supposed to get some hotter temperatures again, but for the most part, I'm just gonna go ahead and close it, line it up evenly so that the only access, entrance-wise they have is the main one in the front. Because like I said, robbing this time of year definitely becomes something you really have to watch out for. So, okay, go back to our mite count here, and let me see. I am not seeing any mites. One stinger, poor bee, but no mites on the bottom of the alcohol wash. So that's great. Like I said, the what we were seeing mite load wise on this, according to Washington State University, was 1.65 mites per 100 bees. The treatment threshold that most people are operating at now is to treat when you have anywhere from 2 to 3 mites per 100 bees. The reason being that these viral issues that the mites vector have become the most major source of colony health compromise, and so the mite threshold has gotten a lot lower than what it used to be for those viruses to propagate efficiently. So if you're seeing the 1 to 2 mites per 100 bees, and it's that time of the year to treat already, just treat. Go ahead and treat it. Don't leave it to chance. So like I said, okay, so once again, getting our colony ready for wintering. Still, if you're wanting to aim for that weight of around 100-120 pounds for a double deep colony for wintering weight, giving it pollen sub, and that's really the big thing. You know, you can pull a frame of brood here and there if you want, just to check and see what they're doing, but the main thing is to continue to give them pollen sub and feed them if they're not within that proper weight. And that's pretty well it for right now. So yeah, now I got to go and inspect these nuke colonies. It's It's a pretty easy system. It goes pretty quick, but when it's the first yard of the day, it's really hard to get your butt in gear and just start knocking them out. So anyways, have a great day, and always feel free to post any questions that you have or email me, but feel free to post them so that others can respond and also learn. Have a good one. Thanks.